there, and welcome to another edition of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, back from Bloomington, about ready to head out to Columbus. This is one of those rare back-to-back road weeks, but we had it so good, guys, at the beginning of the year with all these home games. You had to go on the road eventually. So we'll have another busy week of travel. And before we get into our opening headlines here, thank you for joining us on the Husker Online Show. We are brought to you by our title sponsor, StayHome.Care. Your home, our care. Get accessible and personalized in-person care in the comfort of your home, whether it's helping with daily tasks like cleaning, laundry, and meal preparation, providing companionship, offering medication reminders, or assisting with personal care and errands. We're here to make life easier. Serving Lincoln, Omaha, and all of Nebraska, StayHome.Care is proud to announce that they received the prestigious Top Home Healthcare Service Award for the second year in a row, reaffirming its commitment to providing unparalleled care and support to individuals in the comfort of their own home. Head to StayHome.Care to learn more. That's .care, not .com. Again, learn more at StayHome.Care or call 402-205-2233. Our heart is with you because we put our heart into everything we do. Your home, our care. StayHome.Care. All right, guys, let's get into it as season's kind of at a crossroads. Nebraska is 5-2, but if you would have just took a temperature check of the press conference on Tuesday, kind of the tone of the fan base, the tone of the questions, the tone of social media, this is kind of a pivotal point now as the Huskers approach these final 5 games of 2024.
Yeah, it is. Isn't it interesting what a blowout loss can do to a mentality of a fan base? Now, Nebraska had been sort of in a downward trend offensively. If you just look at it, it's very easy to do this. Nebraska scored 24 against Illinois. The offense scored 21 against Purdue. The offense, they got 7 from a pick 6, right? So 24, 21, 14, and 7. That's where the offense is. Do you see that? It's going like this. Ooh.
How's it going?
So, yeah, I mean, people are looking at that. Then the defense, which you thought was your strong suit, of the team, gives up 56 points and 6.5 yards per carry. Pretty much gets obliterated. And now you ask questions like, what is the strength of this team? Mm-hmm. Your freshman quarterback has had 2 rugged games. So that's a lot of the reason, Rob, that you're in a crossroads.
Well, yeah, and the defense is kind of its own conversation. I will say when the offense turns the ball over 4 times and the special teams fields kickoffs at its own 2-yard line, like that inherently puts your defense in a bad spot, especially against an offense in Indiana that executes at that type of level. Like that's a predicament. But the big issue right now is the offense. The fact that if an opponent scores more than 28 points, Nebraska's not going to win. And if for them to win, I saw a stat where under Matt Rule, in like 15 or 16 games under Matt Rule, when Nebraska has won against Power Conference schools, this defense has held its opponents to 14 points or less. When they have scored over 14 points, they have not won. So like and if the defense is not playing at a top 10 level, Nebraska does not beat Power Conference or Big Ten teams.
What's amazing is that game was 14-7 with about 4 or 5 minutes left to go in the first half, but you could just feel it. It was kind of like a dam ready to go. Yeah. And I mean, they were just trying to hold it, patch it, hold it. And then eventually it just blew up. And you know, that stat at halftime where Indiana was on a pace to put up the most yards ever on Nebraska in history. Indy frickin' Anda, as Tom Crean once said to Andy Kendi. They were going to break a record with only 28 points. I mean, so it was very much a bend but don't break. And then it eventually just blew up. It didn't break, it blew up.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's really Rob mentioned something that's kind of funny to me. We could spend a fair amount of time arguing what Nebraska's biggest issue is. Rob said the offense is probably it. I mean, you could make a pretty strong case at the special teams.
They can't score.
Right. You could make a case for the special teams being the biggest issue. Then the defense just gave up 56. So where are we at? It's rough. It's a rough conversation, unfortunately.
Own that mic, Steve Sipple.
I think I'm
Get a little closer.
A little soft.
Get a little closer. A
My
little
son.
soft. Yeah. Get a little
Kidding.
closer. Yeah. We're just.
Damn.
Well, let's talk Ohio State though. As you move forward, I mean, this is such a tough turn. You go on the road, lose to 7-0 now Indiana, and you play an Ohio State team who, at this point, has one of the most talented rosters. And if they would have beat Oregon, which they probably could have and should have, they'd be the number 1 ranked team in the country right now.
I have the answer to this. If I were the team's leader, here's what you do. It's very simple to me. You took one on the chin. Okay. Now go out and let it all hang out at Ohio State. Just see where it goes, and then regroup. And then now the brawls really begin up with teams you're even with. You're trying to get to the bowl, that bowl mark, 6 wins and beyond. Just go let it all hang out at Columbus. Just do what you got to do. Then get back here, get home, and slug it out with UCLA. I watched UCLA against Rutgers today. That won't be an easy game. I watched the replay of UCLA Rutgers, and I will tell you that will not be an easy game for Nebraska. You're gonna have to slug it out to beat them.
And if Nebraska goes and loses by 7 touchdowns again, no matter who they play, like they're going to be a team that's going to be in a very delicate state of mind. You can talk all they want about, turning the page and not worrying about last week. When you get whooped on national television 2 weeks in a row, if that were to happen this week, that's going to be a really precarious
just let it
spot.
all hang out, though. Don't get in that mindset.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that's been Rule's message. Like, if they play to, win the scoreboard, they're going to lose, and they're going to lose bad. So they just got to kind of focus on just each individual incremental win that they can get, and then hope that totals to be a competitive performance. But, right now it's just not setting up very well.
What's interesting about Ohio State is they've yet to really put it all together at a high level. And if you talk to people there, their fan base is not really in love with what they've seen either. Right. Even though this team has got a 1 loss, but they played as easy of a non-conference schedule as Indiana in terms of no Power 5 teams, no Power 4 teams, and they beat Iowa handily. But this Ohio State team, they haven't played nowhere near their best football in terms of what the talent is on this roster.
I don't think they have. I mean, if you listen to Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel, that whole conversation about this is the best roster that Ohio State's ever had, then you don't go lose to Oregon. But they did, and they didn't run the ball particularly well. They didn't rush the passer particularly well. They didn't look, to me, in the second half, it didn't look like they had a championship caliber quarterback down the stretch. So, yeah, I'm sure their fans are not feeling satisfied right now. But on the bad news is Nebraska's going to get Ohio State's full attention.
Yeah,
off a bye.
Coming off a bye after a loss that significantly impacted their postseason standing.
I'm telling you though, being a 11 a.m. noon game out there is the better case scenario for the visitor. We've been out there for night games.
Oh, it's rough. It's rough, and we've been out there for day games, 11 o'clock games, and people would be surprised by the number of empty seats in that big stadium and how quiet it is.
It's a tough blue collar crowd too. So early kickoff there, you're not going to get the same. I mean, at night, I think this as hard of a place to play in the Big Ten. So this is a break for Nebraska. When we come back, we will get into the offensive storylines as the Huskers get ready to head to Columbus. You're listening to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. Again, we're brought to you by our title sponsor, StayHome.Care. They are there to help you with the errands and things that you need for the people most important in your life, whether it could be as taking someone to a doctor's appointment, grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning. Check them out at StayHome.Care. Call them at 402-205-2233. Also, we are brought to you by CHI Health and St. Elizabeth in Lincoln. Children are little, but we know emergencies are not. Accidents don't always happen at 8 a.m. either. So that's why CHI Health St. Elizabeth's offers Lincoln's only ER just for kids, Pediatric Place. It's located on the west side of CHI Health St. Elizabeth, right next to their ER. It's open 24/7 for pediatric emergency care. It offers child-friendly rooms and a private waiting area to help put kids at ease. Going to the emergency room at any circumstance is not an easy thing, especially with a child. So they put a lot of those concerns at ease for you. They have expert staff. They specialize in pediatric and emergency care. To learn more about Lincoln's only ER for kids, visit chihealth.com/pediatric place. Okay, let's get into the offensive storylines heading into Saturday, because I think it starts with Dylan Raiola. That was a very out of character game for him. He was actually charged with 4 turnovers because at the very, very end of the game on a 4th down play, there was a fumble that he got charged. Along with the 3 interceptions. 3 of Nebraska's turnovers in that game happened inside the 15-yard line in the red zone. Indiana scored 28 points off Nebraska turnovers. And that's the question. Why were the turnovers happening? Is it the predictability? Is it the lack of the run game? Is it bad decision-making? Is it all of the above? And I don't think anyone has an answer.
I just have to isolate on each one. It's a second straight uneven performance for Dylan. He's in a tough spot because there's really nothing this offense really can hang its hat on right now. It doesn't seem like. So it all comes back to the quarterback. I've said it. I've been saying it since August that the best thing for Dylan would be a good run game. Well, the run game ranks 99th nationally now. The run game ranks 14th in the Big Ten. I said it a million times. You get the run game going, the conventional running game going, take pressure off your quarterback. It's not happening. That's where the conversation starts. And that's a conversation about the offensive line and the running backs. That's where to me the problems begin, because if you ranked 4th in the league or 20th nationally in running the ball, we wouldn't be having these conversations.
And I think a lot of it, the reason they can't run is because there's no threat in the passing game right now. And you heard Rule talk about that Indiana was just run blitzing. They were bringing guys into the box and just coming right up the gut and stopping the running back run game and forcing Dylan Raiola to have to beat them with his arm, because they knew that they could cover those wide receivers one-on-one, that the receivers were not going to get open, and offensive line wasn't going to give Dylan time to let routes develop. And he's a freshman quarterback that wasn't probably going to handle the pressure all that well. So all their solutions to combating that pressure weren't working either. When you can't run the ball, when the screen game isn't working, when the quick passes to the perimeter are getting blown up for -1 yards, what do you do? What do you call in that situation? Because right now, it's a schematic issue where maybe they aren't committing to the run or not finding ways to run the ball more effectively, but guys also aren't winning one-on-one matchups, especially on the perimeter.
Well, and staying on that subject of perimeter, what do you do when you can't run up the middle? You try to run on the perimeters. And Nebraska has a perimeter blocking team. That is a weakness beyond weaknesses right now. I mean, when Nebraska has the numbers advantages and they run, the bubble screens, which are essentially run plays, the blocking's not there. And you just think in history, watching previous Husker teams, go back to Kenny Bell and Anunwa, and just how good those guys were at just blowing people up on the edge in the perimeter and getting huge plays off little bubble screens. And that's been a real issue for Nebraska. They're just not getting the perimeter blocking. And then when they want to run traditionally, they're extremely predictable because they don't have a QB run game, and they don't have an offensive line that's getting a great push, and they don't have NFL running backs. Other than that,
well, that's the thing now. So, and I just want to make clear, we're not just responding to a loss. We're not overreacting to a single loss. This, as I laid out in the first segment, these offensive issues go back. I mean, they go back 4 or 5 weeks, 4 or 5 games. We've seen it trending this way. The way to play Nebraska, I'm going to play coordinator right now and see if you agree. If you're a defensive coordinator, you blitz Nebraska and you play man. Blitz them and play man.
Yep.
Play man in the back. They don't have guys that are beating one-on-one coverage. One way, I know what I would do. Oh God, I got to be careful. I really got to be careful. I would run 19 and 17 down the field more. I would straight go routes sometimes.
Yeah.
Just
when Ja'Cory Barney basically is now a starter. They
stretch the defense. I mean, Tennessee's beating Alabama with 3 guys running go routes. Nebraska's got 3 sprinters in Naor, Lloyd, and Ja'Cory Barney. Use them. They run a lot of layered routes, a lot of underneath stuff. then those are just getting
But when
blown
that
up.
speed can't get off the line of scrimmage, how effective are those
True.
go routes?
Yeah, and they're losing
When
at
they're
the line
playing
of
press
scrimmage.
man and getting locked up at the line of scrimmage,
Yeah.
and that offensive line can't hold for 7 seconds for them to actually get out of their routes and downfield, that concept becomes worthless.
Guess how many throws on Saturday went over 20 yards down the field? Guess.
Well, I'll say 2.
One.
I was going to say one.
Okay.
And they connect. It was a 25-yard pass. In terms of balls that travel 20 yards plus in the air. So that has not, I mean, we know Dylan Raiola has a great arm. In the Rutgers game, there were 6 that went deep, and a lot of that was in the first half.
So yeah, I don't know. I got to pretend. I got to quit pretending like I'm a coordinator. But I've watched Nebraska now, and that's how you do it. If you man them up, it's just like in basketball, Rob. If you're playing a team that you're much more talented and athletic than, why zone them?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why would you zone them? You man them up and take advantage of your athleticism against their vulnerability that way.
Yep.
Yeah, and the offensive line, when it's predictable, I mean, it puts them even in tougher positions.
Absolutely. So then it winds back to this whole Fire Satterfield conversation. We've pretty much established that there's not much there to work with. So what do you do as a play caller?
Yeah. Well, then there's the argument of, is it, can the chef blame people when he's the one that went out shopping for all the ingredients for the meal that he cooked?
But he didn't do it.
I mean,
he
doesn't run the road.
He's
He's not on the road.
Well, whatever. Like he had their staff, maybe not just Satterfield, but
Right.
Nebraska's current coaching staff. They got those 2
I'll give
transfer
you
wide
that,
receivers.
but yeah,
They brought in these freshman wide receivers. Like they brought the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're working with largely. Last year, you at least gave them the benefit of the doubt because they were decimated with injuries. Well, this year they've had their group from pretty much outside of a couple offensive linemen from start to finish, and they've gotten progressively worse.
Okay, what do you do with Heinrich? I think that this is now. I'm much more amenable to the conversation of how about a little more Heinrich, running as a quarterback.
How do you flow that into a flow of a game?
There
That's
isn't
the
much
trick,
flow
right?
right now, I guess.
I mean, one play, you're out. 2, I mean, how do you do it without making it that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that just needs to be that where you bring him in and you just run a QB, play the numbers game. Because right now, whatever scheme you're trying to draw up isn't working. So maybe you just go 10 blockers, 1 runner, and say, "Here we go."
You're looking for a spark right now. You're looking for a spark.
Yeah,
The question is, how often do you use him?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have your starting quarterback. He's your starter. So how often do you use him? There's a threshold, is what I'm talking about. There's a threshold where I guess you're not threatening your starting quarterback.
Yeah, I don't know if this would be that case. So you're just trying to find a semblance of offense right now, where like it's not just Dylan has to make every single play for them to put points on the board.
And check downs. I mean, those check downs were just getting gobbled up. I mean, it looked like a pack of pit bulls attacking Ja'Cory Barney.
So good on Dylan for not trying to force it and having more mistakes, but at the same time, like Indiana was just baiting him into doing that all day.
And I feel for Dylan. I feel for him. It goes back. I'm going back to the running game. If they had that going, if they had a Jordan James, if they had a Judkins, if they had name a very, very good running back, if they had that, it would take a lot of pressure off of the quarterback.
And in recruiting and in the transfer portal, you would think running back and receiver would be 2 of the easier finds.
There's a lot of them out there.
Because how many teams can pay what Nebraska's NIL can pay teams? Not a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can get guys, but Rule has to decide, like, going forward, what he wants to do. If they feel like they need to change some of these things out to be better.
There's no decision at receiver. You got to go get a couple.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
So,
no decision there.
When we come back, we're going to hit on the defense and what Tony White had to say as we get ready for Ohio State. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. We're brought to you by our title sponsor, StayHome.Care. They are there for you to help you with the loved ones that need the assistance, whether it could be grocery shopping, to getting a ride to a doctor's appointment, cooking, cleaning, whatever it is, they are there for you. That's StayHome.Care. We're also brought to you by Bauer Underground, and we're thrilled to bring them back here on the Husker Online show this year. They help Bauer Underground serves as a support for local contractors and utility companies in the state of Nebraska. Bauer Underground gives 100% to assure quality control for their customers and has excellent management skills to supervise each and every job that they contract for. The company and its employees are accustomed to deadline pressure on construction jobs, and they take tremendous pride in meeting the deadline requirements while maintaining excellent workmanship on each job. Strategy is at the heart of what they do. For more than 25 years, their reputation has been built on the basic principles, which include quality workmanship, on-time job completion, hiring and retaining high-quality personnel, utilizing the latest earth-moving techniques, maintaining safety for their customers and employees. We have a lot more coming from Bauer here throughout the season, but thanks again to Bauer Underground, as they have offices in Omaha, Lincoln, Kearney, and Norfolk, for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. Okay, let's get into Tony White, the defense, the task at hand, because look, they gave up 5 rushing touchdowns to Indiana. They had not given up one all season. As Isaac Gifford said, that was a you-know-what beating.
What did he say?
I don't cuss on my show.
It was
My mother listens.
$$8 whooping.
Yeah. Didn't see it coming. I mean, who among us saw 56-7 coming?
No.
I got to own this mic, like Indiana owned Nebraska's defense. They did. They owned them. And some of it was schematic according. Now, I was talking to I'll just call him a Husker great, a former Husker linebacker great, played 7 years in the NFL. He thought scheme was fine. Tony White today said there's some things schematically that he would do differently. I think it was more about guys not matching Indiana's intensity. And I mean, and there you go. I don't know. Listen, you can grouse about it all you want. It happens in this world. I mean, Georgia doesn't show up and play the same every game. Nebraska, I'm not making excuses. I'm not making any excuses. It's a horrible performance, but it happens. Now you just got to see how they rebound.
Yeah, and how are they going to rebound against one of the best offenses in college football? You're talking about a top 6 scoring offense, top 6 total offense that has playmakers all over the field. They did just lose their starting tackle, though, for the season, it sounds like. So I guess
left or right?
I think it's left. They'll have to put in their next 5-star to replace him. But that being said, like, you know, what choice do they have right now? Like, the only thing they can do is just try to lick their wounds and learn from it and try to put their best foot forward. Like you said, Sip, just let it all hang out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, this could not be a worse situation, in my opinion, to have to go on the road and try to go through that process against this team, because Ohio State, what I worry about is them looking to make a statement. And Ryan Day has done this before. You go back to the 2020 game, they won 56-14, I think it was, and they punched in a late touchdown, like when the game was already in, and Ryan Day actually apologized, saying like, look, you know, we were trying to basically make the score look better than it was because of the playoff implications. And that's even more so now in the college football playoff mold, where they're coming off a loss that is going to be significant in that discussion come the final seedings.
Well, they'll be in the playoff.
Well, I know, but now that we're talking about seeding, we're talking about who they're going to host and play.
They got to go to Penn State and play.
Yeah.
I mean,
but to get back right on national television on Fox Big Noon Saturday, like, I would worry that they're going to try to maybe rub it in a little bit.
But is this team capable? I mean, they haven't really done, like, they're not putting up like the video game Ohio State numbers like we've seen. Like, and
Indiana just did.
Well, Indiana did, yes, but that was an outlier.
Mm-hmm.
That was an out. I mean, look at what Nebraska did to Colorado. Look at Colorado's doing now. Look what Nebraska did to Colorado. I mean, if you're trying to I mean, we know what this team can do.
But Ohio State's offense is unlike anything Nebraska had seen through the first 6 games.
Well, I'm trying to counter you here, Robin.
I know, and I'm countering. We're countering.
We know this defense can be good and what they've done this year, and they were out of sorts for whatever reason. The style of that game got them off balanced.
And they should be, we thought they'd be good, and they have been good stopping the run. And that's Chip Kelly. I mean, Chip Kelly's going to find a way to run the ball. What scares me is they have all the talent they need. And it's also a complicated scheme. This is a very difficult week for the Nebraska defensive staff because they're not just facing a team like Colorado basically ran one run play. All right. Inside zone. That's it. You knew what was coming every time. It's not going to be like that this week. It's a complex scheme, and Chip Kelly is going to find a way to run the ball.
He wants to run for 300 yards.
Yeah, it's tough. So it's a tough schematic. It's a tough schematic week. It's tough personnel wise because they have the better personnel. Really challenging, but I'm kind of with Sean. I mean, it doesn't. I think if you're Nebraska players on either side of the ball, you do what rules said, and that is, you want to play in the NFL. Here you go. Let's see what it looks like, because you're facing a lot of guys who are going to play in the NFL. You got to back down. If that's your mindset, you're not playing in the NFL. Forget it.
Mm-hmm.
So go out and compete.
How many times did you guys notice Nash Hutmacher, Ty Robinson, or John Bullock in this last game?
Very little.
Bullock has his worst game this year.
By far. It was by far his lowest PFF grades of the season.
Nash played 20 snaps.
I don't think he had a tackle, did he?
We left.
I think
and then
number
came
0
back
has
late,
0 tackles.
But I think that's the other thing.
Hold on.
What did Indiana do to kind of make those guys a non-factor? Where the previous game out, Greg Schiano, so that they were top 5 unit in the country.
Sean, the answer is they didn't do anything crazy. They just executed at a high level. There was nothing. They didn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think teams have been scheming for those guys all season long, and until last week, it really didn't matter because those guys were just winning those matchups. And I guess the reason Bullock has been so successful is because when they did slow down Robinson and Hutmacher, he was just feasting and racking up tackles, and that, for whatever reason, didn't happen. And maybe that has to do with the way Indiana disguised things with their window dressing and their pre-snap movement. Maybe they had Nebraska off balance to where they were taking guys like that out of plays before they even ran it.
All right, Tommy Hill played 27 snaps, guys, last week. Sierra Wright, 31. What did you think of just that rotation and how they? I mean, neither one
got burned. I mean,
neither one played a good game.
The corners were horrific. I mean, look at the stats that you wrote in Pro Football Focus. I think they got beat on 13 of 14 pass plays.
Mm-hmm.
Each of them allowed a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tommy Hill and Sierra Wright were targeted 8 times. They allowed 7 catches for 104 yards.
That's a bad day. It's a bad day for corners.
Because a lot of those were situational third down.
Yeah,
catches.
I'm not picking on them. I'm not. The head coach singled them out in the Monday press conference.
Mm-hmm.
What did he say when I asked him, what did you see on defense? What was the main problem on film?
The 50
corners.
balls.
Yeah.
It was getting beat.
Well, that 3rd and 8 or 9 when it was a 14-7 game.
Yeah.
Okay, I know they got blown out, but those are huge moments because they could have forced a punt, there was momentum opportunities, and you need to win 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s.
Oh, yes. So we're not being hard on him. The head coach said this stuff. This is what it is. And you didn't read the stat that I saw. Sean, I swear to God, I thought I read in your Pro Football Focus, you do the defense.
I do the offense.
Oh, Rob,
Mm-hmm.
I think the corners got beat on 13 of 14.
12 of 13 for 170 yards and 3 touchdowns between Hill, Buford, and Wright.
That's a nightmare. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. That's how you.
So how do you dial up pressure and get after the quarterback when you can't cover on the perimeter?
Right.
Just like the same thing with offense. They're not winning on routes on the perimeter. Nebraska's perimeter game right now is in a real problem.
Well, it hasn't been. The corners have been good. I mean, so that was like when I read that stat, I'm like, man, this is an aberration.
You hope so.
But now who are you going to face? Jeremiah Smith and
That's what I'm saying.
Egbuku.
Yeah, these receivers are way better than what Indiana has. Way better.
Yeah.
These are first-round draft picks.
Yeah. All right, when we come back, Abby Barmore will try to add some sanity to the show. We'll take your questions in the mailbag. You're listening to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washington, Abby Barmore, brought to you by StayHome.Care. They are there to help you help the loved ones in your life. Give them a call at 402-205-2233. We're also brought to you by Vintage Custom Homes. A lot of people right now, you might be thinking about building. You want to build. Check out Vintage Custom Homes. They're at vintagecustomhomesne.com. That's their website. They are an elite custom home builder, and you may only get the opportunity to build your dream home once. You want to work with pros. You want to work with people that are going to help you do things the right way. All the little details, all the things you don't even think about. They are the pros. They are the experts. They have been through countless numbers of builds, and as you can see, they want to do it right. And we've joked that Steven Sipple needs this closet at his house because
you can only imagine.
You can only imagine the number of orange shirts that would hang in that beauty.
I'm thinking about going to Target today and getting a shirt.
We actually we need to get a Husker Online orange shirt for you.
That would be perfect.
But
I would wear that.
Check them out at, again, that's vintagecustomhomesne.com. as they are going to help you build your dream home. They're based in Gretna. They've been around since 2008. Thanks again to Vintage Custom Homes for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. Abby, let's get to the mailbag. Where are we going?
Okay. After 7 games, what surprises you most about this team and what surprises you the least?
What surprises me the most is probably just the overall lack of explosive plays on offense. I just expected a little more, especially in the portal era.
Okay, Rob?
Just the inability to do anything consistently on special teams. I mean, just the fact that dropping back to punt, you're holding your breath on it. Kicking an extra point,
About
you're
got
holding
one
your breath.
block again against Indiana.
You know, the fact that like they're inside the 25 and you're like, well, can they make it from here? Like that is stunning to me. And the fact that it's been like that all season long, I mean, I don't get it.
Thought they'd be better up front on offense. We've been having a conversation for a few years where we say no excuses, no excuses, no excuses. They haven't been terrible. I just kind of wait for Nebraska to be really good, you know, where there's no doubt that you're watching excellence. I'd like to see him get to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what surprised you the least?
What surprised me, I mean, just the play of Nash and Ty. I mean, even though last week wasn't great, I just think they have been what we at least thought they were going to be for most of this season.
Record. I'm not surprised by 5-2. Now, how they got there because of the 56-7 loss, but 5-2 is about what I expected.
Mm-hmm. I'd say probably just Dylan rising to the challenge. I mean, he had all the makings of being a guy that was not going to be overwhelmed by this moment as a true freshman. He certainly had his downs, including last week being the worst of it. But I think overall, if you're a Nebraska fan, you still have to really like what you see from that element, that their quarterback has a ceiling that's higher than ever right now.
All right, what do you got next, Abby?
What are your thoughts on Micah Mazuka moving to left tackle and switching off with Gunnar Gatula against Indiana?
It was fine. I mean, I think it always has made sense to get your best 5 on the field. I think he is one of their best 5 as long as he's engaged in doing what needs to be done. But it didn't change the world by any means. But I do think we'll probably see more of that this week.
He deserves praise for doing that because it's not he got out of his comfort zone. He's a guard. He's a guard who was willing to move the tackle.
He's played tackle in early of his career at Baylor.
Yeah, but he's
played tackle snaps though.
Yeah,
it's not like he's never done it before.
He's a guard. As if you're listening to Satterfield today, Satterfield said exactly that. He's a guard who moved the tackle. So I give him a lot of credit for moving out of his comfort zone and doing it for the team.
Well, yeah, and Sean, you wrote that he played 44 snaps to Gatula's 36, and he scored the highest pass blocking grade of anybody on the offensive line. So
good job.
I mean, for a guy that is getting his first taste of tackle, or at least in a long time, it's a pretty good start.
Good job.
Yeah, you know, I think he's a veteran guy too. He's versatile enough that he can do those things. But yeah, I want to get the numbers here just so because when he was at Baylor, he did play at least some tackle. But you're right. I mean, his body is built more.
Yeah,
as
he's
a
a
guard.
guard.
Okay, next question. Do you think Matt Rule will make significant changes to his coaching staff after the season?
I mean, it's always too early to say, but I think in college football now, that's just the norm anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're always going to see 1 to 3 guys move in and out of staffs. That's just the reality of the money and where college football is. The days of having this cozy staff of the same guys for 25 years, Iowa maybe, and that's about it.
Yeah, I don't even know if Iowa. You can say that about Iowa. Sean's right. I mean,
Parker and Woods and some of those guys have been there a long time.
Yeah, the answer is yes. There will be movement. What will it look like? I don't know. I don't know why. I'm not necessarily altogether comfortable with this discussion because Nebraska's 5-2. It strikes me as a little reactionary to a bad loss.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think it's too early, but if things keep trending this direction, I mean, so when I think of significant, I think coordinators. I'm not talking about like a tight ends coach or whatever. You know, I'm talking about like big names on your staff, and things would have to continue to slide. But right now, like I said, special teams has been a disaster from start to finish. What do you do there?
And what rule changed this year? You can have unlimited paid assistants. So
yeah, so it might not entail a firing as maybe
a demotion,
role reassignment.
I mean, you can take a cop off the streets and put him on a desk pretty easily. And
brilliant.
Add it to the list.
That We haven't heard an analogy in a while
That's
from
good.
you, and
I
you
needed
came
that.
out swinging.
But there's a lot of ways you can do it now with these rules. I mean, you can
More analogies.
I mean, like I said, I mean, if a guy gets a little rusty on the street, you put him on a desk.
Yep.
Sean, why not more analogies?
I don't know.
You can't force it.
It's
It's gotta-
got to naturally drop that
Yeah,
one.
it's
That
got
was
to
a
it's got to
brilliant
come
one.
organically.
He does it in conversation though
I know.
all the time.
I know.
All right, what do you got next?
How does Nebraska define their identity on both sides of the ball more?
I'm still getting over Sean's analogy, which was incredible.
It's perfect.
Define their identity. They need to stop the run and be an elite run defense. That is their identity. If they can do that, kind of everything else around them gets better.
We know the offensive identity. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where they're best suited to kind of hang their hat is on the lines. All right, because right now we're talking about the issues on the perimeter and whatnot. The biggest strength that we assumed is the defensive line. Like they got to continue to make that what their defense is all about, and that is stopping the run and getting pressure with 4 and being able to drop back in coverage. Like if they can do that, they're going to have a chance in most games. And on the other side of the ball, it goes back to the run game. If they can just run the ball somewhat efficiently, I think that's going to take a world of pressure off Dylan Raiola in that passing game, and all of a sudden the offense looks a whole lot better as a result.
Abby, I'm glad you asked the question, because what I see from the offense doesn't always seldom matches what we've heard from the head coach, what he wants the offense to be, which is what kind of ground and pound, work off it with play action. It's not always going to be that simple, but that's what he'd want. Kind of the Baltimore Ravens, old Baltimore Ravens. That's what they did. It was pretty simple actually, but you never see it hardly. So that I think we know what they want to do. You just don't see them do it.
All right, final question.
Where does Ohio State rank in terms of Big Ten road atmospheres?
It's definitely elite. I think it's better than Michigan, and
I agree.
I think it's better than Penn State because because the venue's a lot better, and I think the city's a lot better. It's Columbus, Ohio, in the old Big Ten, not when you count LA. I believe it's the largest city in the Big Ten. I mean, it's the largest city in the state of Ohio, so it's a major city. Columbus
is it bigger than Minneapolis?
I don't know. I know Columbus, Ohio is bigger than Cincinnati and Cleveland both.
Okay, it might be bigger than
And that's not putting Northwestern in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, but I just think it's a great city and a great place to go to a game, and then the history is rich, and so it's definitely. I'm a stickler for Wisconsin. I've always loved going there.
Wow, really?
Same.
Interesting.
I put Ohio State right up there.
Yeah, so the only time that I've been there was the Adrian Martinez freshman year game, and that atmosphere was kind of underwhelming. Like it didn't seem like Ohio State fans were all that.
You went there a couple times.
Maybe
right?
I was there twice.
Were you there in 2012?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a night game.
Oh, yeah.
You were
That was
there.
the Braxton Miller game.
That was
right?
63-38.
Yeah, okay.
That was Urban's first year.
I must have blocked that one out. Yeah, that was
Urban's first year.
That was a hornet's nest.
63-38 was a big time hornet's nest.
Yes.
Nebraska started, I think, kind of got going in that game. Then what happens is when Ohio State gets rolling and that crowd gets rolling, it's like wrestling down a bowl.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to do.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they couldn't do it. Nebraska couldn't.
Carlos Hyde and Braxton Miller, they were just running all over him.
Carlos Hyde.
The COVID game was the last trip out there, though, 2020.
Yeah, and I did not go to that one, obviously.
God, COVID game. That was rough. I walked right by Bill Moose. I didn't even know it was him because he had a big mask on. I didn't know.
What I remember is like you pulled up to that stadium. And normally it's the hardest stadium to drive up
by
to.
far.
I mean, there's tanks and military
Yeah.
barricades. It's well secured for whatever reason.
That's an analogy. It's not actual.
No,
tanks.
it is.
Is there tanks?
We saw like armed guards blocking the streets.
Yeah, it's like you go through like checkpoints. It's intense.
It's like you're going into Soviet Russia.
This game in 2020, I pulled my car up like literally feet from the door. And then you went up to the elevator and then you didn't leave. I mean, like the weirdest thing about COVID games is for some reason, they deemed it not safe to like even be, to do an interview. Obviously you were up in the press box.
It was crazy.
And you did them on a Zoom. So people that weren't there still had the same access that you had being there. There was no press box announcer. That was the other strange thing. So you sat in this silent press box and you had to kind of like I felt like Riley Jane Hamilton of the Journal-Star covering a Class C2 game.
And you were super high up.
Yeah.
You're super high up. Yeah, it was like, this is going to sound terrible, but it's like I didn't see the game.
Yeah.
I can remember writing that column and going, God, this is really challenging because I missed a lot of this game. I couldn't see some of it. There's no press box announcer.
The no press box announcer
Yeah.
really threw me off.
Right.
Because usually like they give you the yard total on every play, and you were like, God, what was that?
Yeah.
17 yards.
And I
18
want to
yards?
emphasize, you are way up in the sky.
And the live stats weren't working either. Do you remember that?
Right. Absolutely, Sean.
Like there was no stat monitor. It was like nobody was prepared for that first game. And then I think it improved. I do remember at Northwestern, they said that when you were at your seat, you could have your mask off. And so
Please defend me on this.
And Simple had his mask off, and some just young, over serious kid just chastised Sipple for having his mask down at his seat.
Hammered me.
Yeah.
I was eating that lunch of nuts and berries.
Yeah, they had this real super fancy Whole Foods trail mix box.
Yeah.
That's fair.
No, seriously, it was
It's like nuts.
it was like, let's just spend an exorbitant amount of money on things at Whole Foods and feed the media this.
Yeah. Classic Evanston weirdness.
Yeah, and you got just ripped.
It was very.
It was very trying times for everybody.
Well, Simple also got snake-eyed for not wearing his mask outside in Evanston.
Do you remember that too?
Yeah, we were walking, me, you, Parker, on the streets, on the sidewalks, and everyone had their masks on outside. And they looked at Simple. They're like, "Why is this guy not wearing his mask?"
I did not notice that.
And you could see people like
It was a super shredder just walking down the street.
People were like walking away from you.
I did not notice that either.
It happens all
That
the time.
generally happens.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's nothing new.
All right, that's just a normal day. But thank you, Abby.
Oh, you guys are
Of
hilarious.
course, it was fun.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk Big Ten games. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Final segment here of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. As we talk Big Ten games, again, we're brought to you by our title sponsor, StayHome.Care. Your home, our care. Get accessible and personalized in-person care in the comfort of your home, whether it's helping with daily tasks like cleaning, laundry, and meal preparation, providing companionship, offering medication reminders, or assisting with personal care and errands. We're here to make life easier, serving Lincoln, Omaha, and all of Nebraska. StayHome.Care is proud to announce that it has received the prestigious Top Home Healthcare Service Award for the second year in a row, reaffirming its commitment to providing unparalleled care and support to individuals in comfort of their own homes. Head to StayHome.Care to learn more. That's .care, not .com. Again, learn more at StayHome.Care. Call them at 402-205-2233. Our heart is with you because we put our heart in everything we do. Your home, our care. That's StayHome.Care. Let's get into the Big Ten games. Obviously, Nebraska was a 56-7 loser to Indiana. A lot of the other surprising outcomes, though. UCLA wins at Rutgers 35-32. Wisconsin continues to roll. They're now thinking big. They could play themselves back into a lot of discussions here. They're 5-2, 23-3 winners over Northwestern. Illinois 6-1. They beat Michigan 21-7. Maryland stuns USC with a blocked field goal to win 29-28. The Trojans now 3-4. Michigan State stuns Iowa with almost 500 yards of total offense, 32-20. Iowa is now 4-3 on the season. And then Oregon on Friday night, who stayed at our hotel, by the way, Steve Sipple.
Yes.
Just missed him.
We just missed them getting on the bus. They were a 35-0 winner over Purdue. And a lot of things there, guys, but I guess the USC demise is probably, for me, the one that gets my attention because them losing to Minnesota and Maryland was really not part of the script.
No, not part of the script. I'll tell you what else is not part of the script. How about Illinois as a playoff team? Here's Illinois' schedule. Now, Illinois is 6-1. They're going to lose at Oregon. They're going to lose at Oregon this week. Okay. Then the rest of the schedule is this: Minnesota in Champaign. That'd be 7-2. Michigan State in Champaign, 8-2. At Rutgers, 9-2. Northwestern at Wrigley, 10-2. Try to keep them out.
Well, it's the balance of the Big 12 and the ACC, and if they get one or two teams in,
Right.
and it's Notre Dame, and then it's picking that fourth SEC team.
How about Illinois?
And then
now,
Illinois and Rutgers,
Wisconsin.
Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana, they're going to be thrown in these beauty pageants with Tennessees and Alabamas.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do this quote, and this is what infuriates people about the playoff selection process, the quote eye test.
Sure.
And then it turns into a recruiting ranking, NFL players on the roster.
Mhm.
And that's where those type of teams get beat out by the quote eye
Right.
test. And
Right.
and that's it infuriates the traditionalists like you.
Right. And I'm not, listen, if Illinois finishes 10-2, they'll still be a long shot ish.
It depends. I mean, it just depends on who gets 3 versus 4 teams in.
Right.
Mhm.
But man,
Oregon,
look at-
Penn State, Ohio State, would you agree they're in today?
I'm sorry.
Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State.
Today.
So can the Big Ten get a 4? No one's getting more than 4, by the way.
I think so. I think Indiana gets in
Indiana, could they get 5? Oh no, you
because
can't get 5.
because they check the eye test.
they do.
They do,
They got to win though.
and they're getting the national love.
I'd have to look at Indiana's remaining schedule, but I don't think it's much.
And then if Illinois wouldn't get in, they'd be just sent to the Citrus Bowl.
Indiana they host Washington at Michigan State, host Michigan at Ohio State, and then close home against Purdue.
A little tougher than Illinois. A little tougher in Illinois. Now, there's no guarantees Illinois in those games I read off either, but that's a big story. It's sort of a hidden story in the Big Ten what Bielema is doing in Champaign.
Mhm.
Anything on you, Rob? Anything jump out this week?
Yeah, I mean the Wisconsin, the fact that they just are keeping it rolling right now, and a bar back in that conversation, they were almost written off for dead, like 3 games into the season. I mean, they look like an absolute mess,
Mhm.
and now here they are, 5-2, and 3 wins in a row by a pretty substantial margin. Like again, another one of those games on the back half of Nebraska's schedule that look a whole lot harder than it did a few weeks
The
ago.
beauty of facing Purdue, Rutgers, and Northwestern.
Mhm.
Slump busters.
That's how you get back on your feet.
And they're playing well, though.
Yeah, they are. They're
All right, this week, week 9, you got 8 games, a big slate. How about this? You get Rutgers USC following the Yankees-Dodgers World Series on Friday night. So Yankees-Dodgers at 7 o'clock, and then New York City and LA's college football teams play on Fox at 10. I mean, whoever planned that out,
pretty good.
pretty good programming plan, because you're going to get more eyeballs watching Rutgers USC than you ever would before, just because of the lead-in of that game.
I wonder how many people will be in the stands, though.
But and also, what happens when the World Series game goes beyond 3 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to put this game on Fox Business.
And what else is on there?
You got Nebraska, Ohio State at 11, Washington, Indiana. That's an 11 a.m. game.
And they're
Curtis Rourke
yeah,
is
with
out, but
Yep.
he should be back a week from now. So what do the Hoosiers look like without Curtis Rourke? That's a storyline. Huge game in Eugene at 2:30 on CBS. Illinois at Oregon. It's a 21.5-point number in favor of the Ducks.
Big
20
number.
I didn't even put it on our sheet, Sip.
Yeah, that's probably the right move. How about Michigan State on BTN?
Yeah, who would have seen that game? That used to be a big noon kickoff
Mhm.
game,
It's a huge get for BTN.
and they get that game. Maryland is at Minnesota, a big game for the Gopher and both teams, because that win would get either one of those teams to 5. So
Okay.
closer to bowl eligibility. Northwestern is at Iowa, and look, where's Iowa at after giving up nearly 500 yards? They're back at home. And then with Penn State
Huge.
at Wisconsin,
Huge game.
Camp Randall Stadium,
Massive.
6:30 at night.
Massive.
That student section in Camp Randall, poof,
Massive game for
Mhm.
both programs.
Mhm.
Penn State is the shakiest number 3 team in the country you'll see.
In
I
fact,
mean,
our goal is to get done working with our show to watch that game.
at Longhorn Steakhouse.
We,
Right.
We went to
Longhorn
we made a very Steve Sipple-esque
Yeah.
audible.
We gave him the reins, and
So part of it is I made a wrong turn on like the 8 sections I had to hit, and somehow I got looped around, and we get turned off and just kind of like this strip mall utopia of Indianapolis, where it was like Home Depot, Target, and everything else, and we had to eat dinner.
Mhm.
And Sip's like, let's go to Longhorn.
And how was it?
it was fine. It was
Other than
It was fine. It was much better than fine.
Other than the
was
grown
good.
man that was sitting next to Robin watching cartoons
on his phone.
full blast.
Yeah, full blast.
I
Like,
can't control
Hey,
that.
the waitress did give me the remote.
Yeah, so that made up. For
That
it.
was a-
Sean got the
we
remote.
had full access to the TV.
So we were flipping games. It was good.
That was excellent.
And
It was
we,
excellent.
we obviously weren't in the mood for chit chat.
Well, and the other part of it too was that was the eve of the Colts Dolphins game, and so downtown Indy was a mess.
Our
Like we
hotel was
looked at try to get reservations at even Harry and Izzy's, let alone St. Elmo's. They were all booked till like 10 o'clock at night. We're like, nah.
And our hotel was where the Dolphins stayed.
Very stealth. I didn't know that, like, in a hotel like that, they're not supposed to tell you the Dolphins are there. And you never saw any trace of them. It's not like we saw Tyreek Hill
Other than
lounging.
Dan Marino's bar tab was open. And
The bartender
told Robin that Marino still had a bar tab.
He left it open. Vodka sodas for Dan Marino.
Vodka sodas. It wasn't like you saw Tyreek Hill lounging around in the lobby. And by the way, other than Tyreek Hill and Tua, I wouldn't recognize a Dolphin if
Mike,
he was.
Well, Mike,
lounging
I would
around.
recognize Mike McDaniel.
Yeah.
In fact, I would actually be excited to meet Mike McDaniel.
Excited?
I think he's funny,
He'd be entertaining.
but I'm sure like he'd be pretty short.
Maybe.
Yeah, things aren't going well for the old Dolphins. Your boy Jake's going through it.
Oh, Jake Sorensen. Yeah, he's really going through it.
Poor little guy.
All right,
Oh,
well,
man,
we'll
there's a lot of
be
idle
back
chit-chat there.
after the game on Saturday. Make sure to join us for Husker Online post-game live. Probably will be on around 4:30 or 5 o'clock Central Time as we wrap up Nebraska and Ohio State. For Steve Sipple, Robin Washut, I'm Sean Callahan, signing off here for another edition of the Husker Online Show.